Good afternoon. Today is the 24th of January and it's time to answer some of your viewer questions. Thank you to everybody who's left a question on the video which I did a few days ago. Let's get into it, shall we? First question is from Yosef from Ashraf on Cars. Have you ever had an interest in driving on track? Why, yes, sir, I have. As I actually answered this question on the comments section of the last video, I have driven a 2008 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 10 and a 2008 Subaru Impreza WRX STI. I think it was a Spec B or something, UK spec, I can't remember exactly. On a track. It was at the Bovingdon Airfield, which is near Hemel Hempstead. Company called Drift Limits own that particular facility now, and they have a couple of tracks you can drive on, and I drove those two cars back to back, which was absolutely brilliant fun. I will put a link to those two videos, which were filmed in December 2018, in the description below. Next question is from Lord Ritchie. How often have you personally serviced your cars? Do you follow the manufacturer's recommendation, or do you do it more often? I service my Mercedes CDI every 5,000 miles. Thanks in advance. In terms of the cars we use all the time, such as the MG3, although hopefully soon this will be going to somebody else, and the Seat, they get serviced at least annually. The MG service intervals are recommended at 15,000 miles or every year. Normally this car does about 11,000 miles a year, and it gets serviced just about annually. The Seat actually has a variable service indicator, and that gets serviced about every 9 to 10,000 miles. That tends to be what it prefers to do, and that will sort of tell you. And I don't get the cars serviced at a main dealer. I get them serviced at a place called Pro Tyre, which is part of what used to be called Mitchell Tyre Company. It's a local firm that my family have been using for about 20 years, and they are very, very good. Our lodger also actually uses them, and they have worked on the Shogun. Actually, they put the fan belt on that, the two fan belts actually on the Shogun, and a power steering belt on for me. They're really, really good. In terms of my mother's car, that just goes to Mercedes-Benz once a year, because she has to have that done by a main dealer on her PCP. In terms of what we'll do in the future, the new car that I've just bought for the channel, which you might see a bit more of next week. I don't know what we're going to be doing with that. We'll have to see. I think we're going to be having a visit from the rubbish mechanic, Mr. Coleman, who will be doing some stuff on that already. So there we go. He likes to service his cars much more frequently than I do at the moment, but that's because I've had quite modern cars generally, and they haven't particularly needed any more rigorous servicing than that. Planet Auto were going to ask a question, but they haven't quite come up with one, I don't think, so we're going to go to the next one from James Sawyer. Which is best, the Sweeney, the Professionals, and Return of the Saint? Oh my gosh, that's a difficult question. I love all three of those series. Return of the Saint, I'd say, is more similar to an old ITC series. Obviously, it is an old ITC series, but the classic ITC era was from about 1962 to about 1971. The ones that come after that, things like the Protectors and the Adventurer and things like that, Return of the Saint, then I don't think they're quite as good as the older series, like Randall Hawkeye Deceased, the Champions, the Saint, the Baron, things like that. But in terms of what it feels like to have a kind of slightly updated ITC series, Return of the Saint's really the only one. That was the last one they actually did in terms of that kind of style. The Sweeney is very much antithesis of the Return of the Saint. There's no kind of outlandish sort of schemes in here. It all feels very gritty. It's a very different type of show. It's a little bit violent for my sort of taste of Sweeney. It's very good, but it is a bit violent. Professionals, That's probably my favourite of all those three, although I think The Avengers is my favourite television show of all time. Professionals, made by a lot of the same people who made The Avengers and the New Avengers, Albert Fennell, Laurie Johnson, Ryan Clemson, named but a few. It's absolutely brilliant. There's some bad episodes of Professionals. CO5 New Professionals that I talked about on this channel back last July is a bit of an embarrassment, to be honest, having actually spoken to one of the people who played one of the lead roles in that. I won't tell you who it is. I don't think he thought it was vintage at the time either. I think he thought he was, hoping it would do well, but of course it didn't. But the original series of Professionals, there were 5 in total. They are absolutely brilliant. Some people say that the sort of, I don't know, the kind of middle bits of sort of series 2 and 3 are the best. I don't really know. But out of all those 3, they're all pretty good, but I'd have to pick Professionals. Next question from Andy G. How long did it take you to learn to drive, and did you pass your test first time? Right. When my sister and I learned to drive, we learned to drive with a combination of 3 different instructors. I had an instructor through my school who had a Citroen Saxo. I've reviewed a Saxo on my channel. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that already. My sister had 2 instructors. First one had a Fiesta. The second one had a Corsa B, and then he changed it to a Corsa C. I actually had additional lessons with him as well. So when I learned to drive, I drove the Saxo 1.4 SI. It's a funny one. The Corsa B with a 1.4 engine was a high torque engine, it was 60 horsepower, and the SI engine was 82. But this was badged as a GLS, so it was a 1.4 SI GLS. The gearbox in that was absolutely terrible. I have to say, it was very bad. The Corsa C that he got was a 1 litre Corsa C. It was a very new car at the time, and it had about, I don't know, 50 horsepower. It was really slow. It pulled reasonably smoothly, but you could notice a lack of power in that straight away. My sister did the tests in the Corsa C. I did the tests in the Saxo. My sister passed 2nd time, I passed 3rd time. The first time I did my test, I failed before I'd even left the test centre, because you're not allowed to drive through an empty parking bay. And so I actually, in order for it to be easy for me to leave a test, I just drove through the left-hand bay next to me because it was easier, and I'd failed the test. Now, the examiner wouldn't have actually failed me, because I think my instructor would have actually told him off for doing that. But when I got onto the road, I ran wide at an angled hill start, and that probably actually failed me the test doing that. I didn't hit the curb or anything, but I ran a bit wide. Second test I took, I failed it because I think my observation on a 3-point turn was quite bad. With where I was told to do a 3-point turn, I didn't like the place where it was, so I was a bit on edge, I think, about that. The third test I took, I actually scuffed one of the wheel trims right at the end, but I actually got away with it. I can't believe she passed me, but she did. Which is great. So my twin sister and I, we passed within a couple of weeks of each other. I passed first, but I'd had 3 tests. She only had 2 tests. Next question is from Stanley Leopard, I think is my oldest channel viewer. Thank you again, Stanley. You mentioned in another video you have the MG3 for quite a long time, over 3 years. That's true. And which for me is a very short period in car ownership. What's the longest period you've owned a car, and why do you tend to change cars? Well, the longest period I've owned a car is probably the Polo that I had as my first car. It was a 1998 Polo 1.4 CL Mark III in bright green. I had that car from, I think it was May 2001 to January 2006. I can't remember now if the car's in my name or my mother's name. I can't remember. My sister, my mother and I used to drive it. I had that car quite a while. Then I got my Seat Leon after that, and I kept the Leon for a long time as well, comparatively speaking. I had that car for just under 4 years. so I sold it in late 2009 to a friend of mine. Third longest car I've had is the first Chevy Cruze I had. I had a black Chevy Cruze. It was a 1.6 LT. It's a 2011 plate. It was a demonstrator, so I got, I think, about just over a third off the list price, and it had done 9,000 miles. I had that from July 2012 until November 2015. So those are the top three of the longest I've owned a car, which isn't, I mean, for me that's ages, but for a lot of other people that wouldn't be very long. The MG3 we've had, it's now January 2020, and we've had this since November 2016. I just get bored of cars. I want to move on. I mean, the Toledo's on a PCP, and the warranty will expire at some point relatively soon, so that'll be going. I just get bored. I mean, the MG3 is working perfectly well. There's nothing wrong with it, really. Particularly, I just fancy a change, and so that's why today I might have bought another car. Let's go with Joe Kyle next. Sorry if this has already been answered, but is the R8 200 you owned still on the road? No, I think, is the answer to that question. I traded that in November 2016 to get the MG3. It was a 1996 R8 216 SLI, although I think it was probably made in 1995. It was registered October 96, so I think it had been hanging around for a while. That had only done about 58,000 miles, but my gosh, the advisory list of that was long, and also these things I needed to do to it. I was happy to part exchange it in a way, and it was also an automatic, and so it wasn't suitable for my lady wife to learn to drive in. So that's one of the reasons why I moved that on, although I think they probably shoved it down an auction somewhere, and that was the end of it. I don't know what happened to it. The car, actually, without me knowing, had been a Category D write-off, so I wasn't too happy about that one when they, told me that at the MG dealership in Kent. And when I actually did the data check on the car that I just bought, I did think about that, and I think I'm not entering into that kind of situation again. I'm not knowingly buying another written off car, so hopefully the data check is okay, and I haven't done one. But yes, that was one of the reasons why I don't think it was worth an awful lot, and I think it's probably in a scrapyard somewhere, or recycled into a fridge or something like that. Right, Mr. Woolard from Matt's Beamer has asked another question. If you were to have a fast luxury car, would you choose the classic lines like an old XJ, a German Express like the BMW 7 Series, an Audi S8 or A8, or a reliable Lexus LS 400? I know what your answer is, so your channel knows Matt's Beamer, and that's an easy one for you. For me, I don't really know, to be honest. I think I would probably go a little bit more towards something like the Audi A8, probably, or the Lexus LS 400, or whatever they call it these days. I don't think I'd want to have the BMW or Mercedes S-Class, it's just my personal preference. Jaguar, I like the E-Type. I mean, obviously a lot of you have seen a walk around of that, and there'll be a full review of that soon, but I'm not sure I'd have the Jaguar. So there's that. And if you had unlimited money to replace the MG3, what would you buy? I like to keep my running costs down a bit, so we're going to have to go for something a bit more sensible than, buying, I don't know, a Lancia Fulvia or something like that, which I do like Lancia Fulvias, actually. They're very nice. If I had limited money, oh gosh, I think we'd pick up a very, very nice Concours condition Rover 75, probably. It's hard to get one in the right price bracket at the moment. They do tend to be a little bit elusive, but at some point we'll probably get 75. I know how much rest of you on the channel really like Rovers. Well, I hope most of you do, because that's what I like. So if you don't like it, then you should probably go and watch JM on Cars or something like that. I don't know. Final question is from Trabali. Right. Your secret mission documents, thank you, sir, require you to go back in time with a time machine, provided 15 years to try and save Rover, but you accidentally go back 50 years to 1970, and I have complimentary sideburns and flared trousers, what piece of advice would you give to the chairman of Rover, Austin and MG? And if you could bring back one car from 3 of those manufacturers of that year, what car would it be? Sorry. You don't need to apologise for that, sir. That's a fantastic question. I think the chairman of British Leyland at the time was a gentleman named Donald Stokes, and he really didn't like the fact that people kept criticising his maxi. He wasn't so keen on that. So, yeah, not the easiest person to deal with. I think what I'd say to him in terms of saving all his marks is, do not launch the Austin Allegro with the styling that it has. Just don't launch it. Morris Marina, possibly if you're going to have that on the market, don't keep it on the market very long. And thirdly, slim down your engine range. You've got too many engines. Far too many engines in the British Leyland cars at the time. Consolidate a lot of the lines. You don't need 9 different marks of car all competing against each other. That's not really necessary. Try a bit more sort of rationalisation of what you've got. You've just got too much stuff going on. Rather than actually trying to make avant-garde designs, just improve your quality a bit more. I know they made a film in the late 70s about the quality connection of British Leyland, but I mean the cars were not of good quality. I've had British Leyland cars. I've had a Dolomite, and that was one of the better cars from the era, but that was based on a design dating back to 1965. So, you know, they are very nice, a lot of these cars from that era. I'm not denying that, but they weren't properly built. And, you know, the Allegro's not good. That's not a brilliant car. Sorry about everyone who likes them, but I'm not a huge fan of them. Marina, I can tolerate the Ital for some reason, but not so much Marina. I don't really know why. I wouldn't mind driving a Marina, actually, but I prefer the Ital. Who knows? I'm not sure. So I get to save one car from Rover, Austin and MG. That's interesting. Rover, well, it's got to be a P6. Probably the 3.5 litre. Bit predictable, but I'm sure Mr. Richardson for Furious Driving will enjoy that. The Austin, I think it's going to have to be a 2200. That does sound quite nice. I think they were selling that at the time. If not, if it's 2200, it might have been a bit later. It'll be the 1800. I think we were in a Mark II by then. And the MG, I would be taking an MG BGT. The V8 wasn't out at the time, so it'd just be a normal MG BGT with the chrome bumpers. There we go. I think that's about it. So there we go. I hope you found the video to be entertaining. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more to come, particularly on the Jaguar E-Type walk around. There will be a full review of that car coming out soon. It does depend on one or two things, but that should be out quite soon. Mr. Franks isn't particularly well at the moment, so we might have to wait a little bit for him to edit that. The Furious Driving E-Type review is actually already out. Matt's been working very hard on that, and you can look at that at the Furious Driving channel. But don't forget to subscribe to Lloyd Vehicle Consulting if you haven't already done so. Like this video, leave a comment below. Hope you enjoy the answers to all those questions. We'll do another question and answer video quite soon. And if you're very, very well behaved, you might even see a video of the new car that I bought today on the channel next week. I've also got a website, www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk, if you wish to see the source of car for you. And then Facebook page, facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching.